Okay, good. So welcome everybody. It seems that more and more of you are attending the webinar. So I'll just wait a few minutes before beginning so everyone has time to arrive. So let's just do a quick sound check. Can you hear me? Okay, good. That's good. Okay, so my name is Daniel and I will be presenting today's webinar to you. I'm presenting this webinar from the northeast of the UK in a very, very small city called Durham. Has anybody ever heard of Durham before? Okay, so some of you have, probably most of you haven't heard of it. It's a very small place, but it's quite well known for university, and there's also quite a famous cathedral here, one of the oldest cathedrals in Europe, I believe. And the weather is absolutely terrible here today. It's raining. So what's the weather like where you are? Winter, okay, sunny, hot, 47 degrees. God, that's hot. Okay. I expect most of you are in places where the weather is much nicer than it is here. Okay, so as I said, I'm in the northeast of the UK. So maybe you could tell us where you are. So which country are you in? Okay, Vietnam, Iran, Philippines, India, Israel, Ghana, Indonesia, Vietnam. Always lots of people in Vietnam. That's interesting. Syria, Thailand. So it looks like most people are in Asia. Have we got anyone here from Africa or South America? Okay, got Russia. Okay, China, Ghana. Okay, we've got someone from Ghana. Okay, so it looks like we've got most continents covered today, and the Gambia. So a few in Africa, lots in Asia, a few in Europe, and maybe one or two in South America. Okay, so I assume most of you will be taking the Ielts test to go abroad. So where are you hoping to go to? Canada. Okay, yeah, New Zealand, Japan, France. Yeah, lots of people want to go to Canada, always very popular for some reason. You for the UK, okay, good. And are most of you hoping to go abroad to study or to work? Okay, study. Okay, so most of you are going to study. So I assume that means that the ones that are going to study, you have to take the academic test, and the ones that are going for work, you could probably take the general training test. So of those of you who are going to study, what subject are you going to study? Physics, computer science, aviation, education. There are lots of different subjects, all very useful subjects. I'm sure you'll find a good job with that in the future. Okay, so let's start the lesson then. Hopefully most of you have arrived now. So today we are going to be looking at vocabulary for the Ielts test. So vocabulary, or your use of vocabulary, is one of the 4 things that you are scored on in the test. What do we refer to? What is the criteria that we refer to do with vocabulary to give you your score? Do you know? That's right, we call it lexical resource. So lexical resource is one of the 4 criteria that the examiners use to give you your final score for writing and speaking. So for the writing test, apart from LR, lexical resource, you know what are the other criteria? Not fluency, not for the written test. Yeah, so cohesion, coherence and cohesion, task achievement, that's right, and grammatical range and accuracy. Okay, but today we are going to be focusing on vocabulary. So let's move on. So these are the aims of today's class. So by the end of this webinar, I hope you will be able to understand 3 key aspects of vocabulary. So one aspect that we will be looking at is connotation. Can anyone tell me, what does connotation kind of mean? It kind of means, so every word has a certain connotation. That's right, Corina Oliva. Yeah, so every word may have a negative or positive connotation. It's not really the definition. It's not really the meaning of the word either. It's just, does a word make you feel good or bad? That might be a very simple way of understanding it. Okay. Apart from connotation, we're going to be looking at register. So in different situations, we use different words, right? So if you were talking to the king or queen of a country, you would probably use slightly more formal language than if you were just talking to one of your friends that you've known all your life. Okay, so we'll be looking at register as well. We're also going to be looking at idiom. Can anyone tell me, what does idiom mean? Or give me you could give me an example of an idiom. Idioms, yeah, some slang. Yeah, it's a piece of cake, so that's an idiom. Idioms often that you cannot guess the meaning of an idiom just by looking at it. Like someone just gave me the idiom, it's a piece of cake. If you didn't know what that meant, you couldn't really guess, because the meaning has got nothing to do with cake. But it's a piece of cake means it's easy. But if you didn't know that, you couldn't guess it. Why idioms are very hard to understand for non-native speakers. Okay, and we're going to be looking at how to identify appropriate vocabulary for the Ielts test. So would you say in the Ielts test, in the writing test, and in the speaking test, would you say it's better to lean towards more formal vocabulary or informal? Yeah, that's right. So the Ielts test is a test of, it's an academic test, especially if you are taking the academic module of the test. So it's a test of your ability to use academic English, to write essays, to express yourself in an academic manner, and therefore you should avoid the use of slang and words that are too informal in both the writing and the speaking test. And we're going to be looking at some strategies that you can use to develop your vocabulary, to expand your vocabulary. Okay, so let's look at this picture. So how could you describe this picture? What is this man doing? Okay, yes, Sisyphus. Yeah. Okay, it looks like it's hard work, doesn't it? Yeah, he's pushing a ball up slope. So can anyone give me an adjective to describe how that might feel? Okay, hard, yeah, heavy, strenuous, good. So these are all adjectives. We could also say the word difficult. What he's doing looks quite difficult. Pushing a heavy object uphill is definitely difficult. So now we're going to be looking at connotation now. So would you say this word, difficult, has a positive or a negative connotation? Okay, so most people are saying it has negative connotation. Some people are saying it's positive. So difficult, maybe the person that's saying this word would have yeah, maybe a slightly negative frame of mind about this particular activity. Okay, can anyone give me a word that has the same meaning as someone who with a more positive frame of mind might use? Okay, so lots of people have already mentioned this word. That's right. So we could say that this activity is challenging. So this word has a much more positive connotation. Okay, let's look at another picture. So here we have a picture of a man. Can anyone give me an adjective to describe this man. Okay, some people are saying he looks strong, and some people are saying he looks lean, and some people are saying weak. That's all different words here. Okay, so we could say that this man looks a bit skinny. Okay, so he doesn't look very muscly, and he certainly doesn't look very fat. So we could say that he's skinny. Okay, so does skinny have a positive or negative connotation? Okay, so we've got people saying negative and positive in equal amounts. So actually, if you're using this word, especially to describe a man, I would say, it's got a more negative connotation. However, if you wanted to describe a woman and make that woman feel good, if she was skinny, so if this woman is definitely skinny, but you want to make her feel nice about herself, what other words could you use that have a positive connotation? Okay, good. So lots of people have already guessed the words. You could say that this woman was slim or slender. So we often use these words to describe women, slim and slender. Okay, men sometimes, but mostly women for some reason. Okay, and I'd just like to remind you, at the end of the webinar, we should have about 5 or 10 minutes to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, could you write them in the question and answer section? Excuse me. Okay. So how could we describe the dress of these women? What kind of clothes are they wearing? Okay, someone has guessed the word already. So we could say that what they're wearing is kind of vintage. So vintage means old, but in a good kind of way. So this word has a positive connotation. So sometimes you get vintage clothing shops, so shops that sell or just vintage products in general, sort of old products, but products that people like, people think are kind of trendy and cool. Okay, so apart from vintage, how could we describe their dress but in a more negative way? Yeah, so lots of people have already mentioned the word. Yeah, so we could say that these women are dressing in a very old-fashioned way. So the words have the same meaning, but this one is negative, this one is positive. Okay, can anyone give me some adjectives to describe this woman? Yeah, she looks curious. Yeah, meticulous. Yeah, smart. She does look a bit smart. Yeah. We could also say that maybe she's fussy. Okay, so do you think that fussy is a positive or a negative word? Okay, yeah, so most people have got the right answer. Fussy is definitely a negative word. If you call someone fussy, they might not be very happy. It has a negative connotation. Okay, but if you wanted to describe someone who was a bit fussy, who was paid really close attention to details, but you wanted to say this in a kind of a positive way, what word could you use? Some people have already actually mentioned the right word. Well, there's more than one right answer, but one way would be to say that she is meticulous. So we could use this word to describe someone who pays real close attention to detail, notices everything. Okay, so how could we describe this man? Okay, yeah, we could say he's confident, strong, handsome, yeah. Powerful, maybe, brave. Okay, lots of people are saying strong. Okay, this man does look quite confident, doesn't he? He kind of oozes confidence. It looks like maybe he's a teacher standing in front of a class of pupils and he feels very confident. So confident is a positive or a negative word? Yeah, so confident is definitely a positive word. It's a good thing to be confident, obviously. obviously. But sometimes people are confident, but we can use certain negative words to describe their confidence. Okay, so I'm getting lots of good words here. Yeah, narcissistic, arrogant, conceited, big-headed. Good. Yeah, so these are all kind of words that some confident people may display these characteristics. So we could say that this man looks a bit arrogant, a bit pleased with himself, could say. But this definitely has a very negative connotation. So you should be careful when using such words. If you just want to say that someone is confident, you should not say that they are arrogant. This has a very negative meaning. Okay, so here we have a picture of a girl who looks like she has lots of money and she doesn't want to spend it. So what words could we use to describe someone who doesn't like spending their money? Okay, good. So lots of you have already come up with many good words. Greedy, stingy, selfish. Yeah, these are all good words. The word we have here is stingy. So does this have a positive or a negative connotation? Yeah, so everyone's got the right answer. Stingy definitely has a negative connotation. I'm sure we all know people who are stingy. They're a bit. Another word that we sometimes use is tight. You can say that so-and-so is very tight. It means that they do not like spending their money, especially on other people. Maybe they might spend their money on themselves, but they might not spend it on other people. However, you could sort of not spend money on yourself or other people, but do this in a kind of a less negative manner. You could certainly be described in a less negative manner. So what words has a okay, good, Erica. Yeah, that's right. We could say that someone is thrifty. Good, Dimitri. Yeah, lots of people have said the right word. So someone who is thrifty also doesn't spend much money, but it has a much less negative connotation than stingy. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at some sentences, and I want you to read the whole sentence before deciding which word to use. So both of these words have the same or similar meaning, but depending on the context, we could only really use one. And the context here is that something really annoying. Okay, so one of these, so this is obviously a negative context, and so as everybody has already said, you need to use this word because youthful has a positive connotation, and so if you use this word, it wouldn't really make sense. Okay, so the next one, a bachelor's degree in the UK is typically studied over 3 to 4 years, apart from in some what cases? Okay, so exceptional and strange have kind of similar meanings, but in this case, we could only say exceptional case. Okay, the next one. Okay, so when you're looking for a job, how should you conduct yourself in a pushy or assertive manner? So one of these words has a very negative connotation, and that word is pushy. So when you're looking for a job, you want to impress people and be nice. So you need to be assertive, which means be confident, but not pushy. Pushy is kind of confident in quite an aggressive way. Okay, next one. Yeah, the word here is cheap. So you're saying to someone, basically, don't be so stingy, you should really buy quality tires for your car. Obviously, it's important to buy quality tires, otherwise you may have a car accident or something, and therefore don't be cheap. Okay, next one. Okay, so the context is that somebody, so this man, he was behaving unprofessionally. So if you behave unprofessionally at work, you will be fired, not made redundant. So both of these expressions have the same sort of conclusion, that this person no longer has a job, but you fire someone for being unprofessional. You don't make someone redundant for being unprofessional. Okay, so now we're going to look at register. So as I said, we use different words in different contexts. So in some contexts, we may refer to kids. In other contexts, we may refer to children. So they both have exactly the same meaning, but they would be used in different circumstances. So now I'm going to show you some words on the left, and I want you to tell me, I want you to write these sentences in a more formal manner, okay? Because kids is informal, children is formal. So here, let's have a look. Okay, so here on the left-hand side, I'm going to show you some informal expressions. In your general training, by the way, it's okay to use less formal language, but less so in the academic test. Okay, so what could we say instead of there are a lot of reasons for this? Okay, yep, so almost everybody has got the right answer. We could say that there are many, there are numerous, good. So several, all of these words are better than a lot of. A lot of, it's very kind of informal language. Okay, next one, he said sorry. What could we say that has the same meaning, but with a more formal manner, in a more formal manner? Okay, that's right. Yeah, so just about everybody has got the right answer. So he apologized. So this is much more formal than he said sorry. Okay, next one, what's up? How could we say that? So this has different meanings in different contexts, but in American English, in certain contexts, in American English, it can sometimes mean, how are you? In British English, it kind of means, what's the matter? Okay, so in American English, you could say, how are you? So American teenagers, you'll often see in films or in real life, if you are in America, they'll say, hey, what's up? And it kind of just means, hey, what's going on? Like, how are you? How are you today? We don't really use this expression in British English. So in British English, say, for example, if you're looking very sad, someone might say, oh, hey, what's up? It means, what's the matter? What's wrong with you? Okay, so profits have gone up. What could we say to make that more formal? Okay, yeah, just about everybody has got the right word. Could say profits have increased. So here's an expression that you will, well, here's a verb rather, that you will use a lot in task one, academic task one, when you're referring to things increasing, decreasing, fluctuating, etc. You could perhaps use the word gone up. I wouldn't use consistently. Better off using these more formal verbs. So does anyone know what kind of verb gone up is? What do we call these verbs that that's right, Trin, yeah, a phrasal verb. So a phrasal verb is a verb that has a verb here and then has like a little particle here, a little like preposition after it. And these are often very, very informal. And in some ways, in some some of them, it's very hard to actually guess what they mean. For example, like gone up, okay, that's fine. Yeah, something is going up, that is quite easy to understand. But what about if I said to you, oh, I saw so and so yesterday, and it looked like she was knocked up. What do you think that means? It's a little bit vulgar, a little bit crude. Not vulgar, maybe slightly crude. So no, it doesn't mean exhausted, doesn't mean tired. That's right, Corina. It means pregnant. And so it would be almost impossible to guess that from the context. So these phrasal verbs can be very tricky to learn for non-native speakers. Okay, right, let's put the next one. So this essay will talk about, so this is obviously something that you will use in task 2, which is this is very inappropriate language for a formal essay. So a much better way to say that, as most of you have already said, this essay will discuss. So I strongly recommend you never use talk about in your task 2 academic essay. It would be fine to use this in the speaking test, but not in formal written English. It looks a bit childish, to be honest with you. Yeah. Okay, so about this issue, there would be a much more formal way of saying the same thing. What could we say? Good, so lots of you have already got the answer. Yeah, we could say concerning, we could say regarding. Good, both of those are absolutely fine. So again, this is something that you would use in task 2. This could be the start of a sentence. Regarding is much better than about. Okay, totally agree with this. Again, this sounds a bit informal, something that you might say in spoken English. What could you say in written formal English? Okay, yeah, I strongly agree. I completely agree. Yeah, both absolutely agree. All of those are fine. They're much better than totally. Next one. It had a really big effect. Again, so if you were to use this language in a task 2 essay, it looks a bit silly. Okay, so we're looking to replace really big here. So considerable is very good. Huge is okay. Enormous. Okay, so considerable is good, and significant is also good. These two sound very formal and sound like the kind of language that you should be using in an essay. Okay, so what could we say instead of in the end? So if you were writing the last paragraph of your essay, you wouldn't say in the end, kind of sounds very informal. It would be much better to say finally. Yeah. And some candidates unfortunately use this at the end of their essay, which this is something that you could say in spoken English, but it sounds a bit silly, or it looks a bit silly if you write that in an essay. So what could you say? So this is what you'd use to summarize something. Yeah, so you could say to summarize or in conclusion. Yeah, but both of those are okay. Yeah. Good. So hold on a second. Okay, yeah, so in the test, I strongly recommend that you avoid using slang. You should probably avoid contractions in the written test. So contractions are things like what instead of what is, or I'm instead of I am. Okay, so you should avoid those in the written test. They are fine to use in the speaking test. And you should definitely avoid using abbreviations in the written test as well. Again, we've looked at phrasal verbs. So here we have the phrasal verb gone up. Again, you should avoid using phrasal verbs definitely in the written test, but it'd be okay to use some in the speaking test. In fact, you probably should use some phrasal verbs in the speaking test, because in order to get a 7 or above for LR, for lexical resource in the speaking test, you need to use some idioms or idiomatic language. Phrasal verbs are often idiomatic, so it would actually be a good idea to use phrasal verbs in the speaking test, but not in the writing test. Okay, let's move on now. Okay, so here we have some text. Okay, we just have a little paragraph here, and I want you to find 10 examples of inappropriate register. So there are 10 words in here that we need to get rid of. Now, I'll give you a minute to look through it. I'll give you a minute of silence now. Okay, so I think most of you have found lots of inappropriate words in this passage. What do you think the first one is then? What would you say is the first? Okay, yeah, the first one would probably be in a nutshell. Okay, so this is a phrase used to summarize something, but it's very informal. So we would not use this in task 2. Obviously, this looks like a passage from task 2. So what would be the next word? Yeah, okay, guys. So again, this is something that we say all the time when we're just chatting to our friends in informal English, but you would definitely not use this word in an essay. Okay, what about the next one? Yeah, a bit. Again, very informal. Something we definitely use in spoken English all the time, but you would very hardly ever or never find this in a quality bit of journalism or in an essay. Okay, what about the next word? Okay, stuff. Yeah, this is very sort of very inappropriate. Wouldn't use that in an essay. Good. Okay, what about the next one? Okay, there's quite a few coming up. So I'd say that. Again, we don't normally refer to ourselves when we're writing an academic essay. You shouldn't. It's better to avoid saying I think that, I think that. Yeah. Okay. Next word. Okay, you wanna. Yeah. So this is almost like text message or instant message speak. So this is extremely inappropriate for an essay, obviously. What about the next word? Okay, good. Yeah, lots of people have said that this word is inappropriate. So yeah, awesome. This is a word that's used a lot, especially in American English, but even these days, it has found its way into British English as well. But it's definitely not a word that you would use in this context. What about the next word? Okay, yeah, you had better. Again, it's quite very kind of spoken English. Okay, what about the next one? Yeah, at the end of the day. So again, this is an expression that people use all the time in spoken English, but looks very silly in written English. Okay, next one. Okay, that's right. So we should avoid abbreviation. Yeah, so instead of saying etc., you'd be better off just listing the things that you are actually talking about, rather than using this kind of abbreviation. Lots of candidates use this word in essays, and it doesn't look very good. So I would avoid doing this. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to rewrite each one of these words using more formal language. So we want to replace in a nutshell. So what could we replace it with? Okay, yeah, we could say to summarize, in conclusion, finally. That's right. Okay, so in conclusion, yeah. Okay, the next word we want to replace is guys. So what could we say instead of guys? Yeah, so here someone said men, but I think here we're not really talking about men only. We're just talking about anyone of any gender. So people. So many people think that academic writing is, okay, what could we say instead of a bit? Okay, quite difficult. Yeah, rather difficult. Both of those are fine. There's actually a very sort of posh sounding word that begins with S. Can anyone think of this word? Not slightly. It sounds not somehow, nearly. It's not somehow. It's not sometimes. Good. It starts there. Somewhat. Okay, good. Yeah, lots of people have got that word now. Somewhat difficult. So this sounds very kind of high register. So I believe there is stuff. What could we say? We might need to replace the verb as well. Okay, yeah, we could say that there are things. That sounds much better than, or a number of things. Okay, that sounds much better than there is stuff. Okay, they can do to improve their writing skills. I'd say that. So I'd is a contraction. So you should write the full form. What is the full form? Yeah, people have already said it. So I would say that is much better than I'd say that. Okay, and what's the full form of you wanna? Okay, good. Everyone's got that correct. If you want to. So here we've got an inappropriate word. So we need to think of a synonym of awesome. Okay, yeah, so we could say excellent, brilliant, perfect, high score, good. So all of these words are much better than awesome. Okay, if you want to get an excellent score, you had better. What could we say? So here we're giving a suggestion. Perhaps we could use a modal verb. That's right. So we could say you should make sure you use appropriate register. So this comment here, this is the kind of phrase that we would use to summarize something. So can anyone think of a better phrase? Okay, yeah, we could say finally, to summarize, in conclude. Well, we've already used in conclusion, so we wouldn't use that again. Yeah, to sum up, all of these are fine, or generally speaking. Yeah, okay. This means choosing formal vocabulary and avoiding idioms, abbreviations. And so here the person is probably going to list one or two more things rather than saying etc. So along with other types of informal language. Okay. So formal register also tends to avoid personal pronouns, particularly the pronoun you. Okay, so we have some personal pronouns in here. So let's have a look. So here, yeah, here we've got some personal pronouns. So how could we rewrite the highlighted section to avoid using you? Okay, so here we've got the first you. Okay, we could say one. That's if one wants to get an excellent score, we could say that. Or we could say that who is the you we are talking about? Who are we talking about? Yeah, good. So we're talking about candidates. We're talking about the people that take the test. So they are candidates. So if candidates want to get an excellent score, so this you is no longer okay, good. So they should make sure. What could we say instead of you? Okay, we could repeat they. We could also use another word. Okay, I think some people have already got it. They should make sure to use appropriate register. Excellent. And finally, some verbs are less formal than others. So can you think of more formal ways of expressing the highlighted verbs? So let's have a look at the highlighted verbs. So one is want to. So what could we say instead of want to? Yeah, okay, would like to, it sounds much better than want to. Yeah, okay, would like to. Get. The get, again, it's a very, we use this verb all the time in spoken English. In written English, it doesn't look so good. Okay, so attain, achieve, acquire, all of these, accomplish, are much better than get. So achieve, yeah, good. Make sure to, so we could turn that into kind of a Latinate verb. That's right, omoteki, yeah, they should ensure they use. Good. Okay, now that we're going to look at some idioms. So can anyone give me a brief description of what an idiom is? It's quite a hard thing to define, really. Well, maybe you could describe, just give me one example of what an idiom might do. Okay, so kill two birds with one stone is an idiom. Yeah, so an idiom is an expression. It's often something that you can't guess the meaning of without knowing the meaning. You couldn't really guess it. Once in a blue moon, yeah, that's also an idiom. Okay, so to help us answer this question, I'm going to give you some expressions and I want you to tell me what they mean, and I want you to tell me which of them are idioms. Okay, so here are some expressions. Okay, so the first one is I was over the moon. So is that an idiom? So yes, this is an idiom. And what does it mean, over the moon? Yeah, over the moon, as everybody has already said, it means really happy. But being happy has got nothing really to do with the moon. And so it's very difficult to guess what this expression means just by looking at it. Okay. Next one. It was raining cats and dogs. Is this an idiom? Yes, this is also an idiom. What does it mean? Okay, good. That's right. It's kind of heavy rain. Yeah, it's when it's raining really heavily. I was an examiner in China for a long, long time, and lots of Chinese candidates use this in the speaking test. But actually, native speakers very, very rarely use this. We hardly ever use it. It sounds a bit silly. So I would avoid using this test if I were you. Okay. It's on the tip of my tongue. What does that mean? It doesn't mean speaking clearly. Oh, yeah, that's, some of you are getting the idea. Something that when you, like I'm doing it right now, when you want to say something, but you can't think of the right word. Yeah, when you're kind of being hesitant, you know it is what you're trying to say in your head, but you're struggling to formulate the word. Oh, what is it again? What's his name again? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, that's it. He's called Roger or whatever. So it's when you can't quite think of a word, the name of a place, somebody's name, etc. It's on the tip of my tongue. Next one, I'm fed up with it. What does that mean? Yeah, it kind of means that you're sick of something, you've had enough, you are feeling a bit angry with something. And yeah, yeah, it could mean that you're bored with something, sick of something. Yeah. Is it an idiom? It is an idiom, yes. Because fed up with has nothing to do with feeding. So it's an idiom, yeah. Students are under a great deal of pressure. What does this mean? Yeah, okay, that it's kind of hard to give a, yeah, they're very stressed out. Good, students are stressed out. This is also an idiom. Okay, next one, it's up to you. What does that mean? Good, it means it's your choice. Okay, this is also an idiom. I mean, the words up to you have nothing to do with making a decision. So its usage is idiomatic. Yeah. Next one, hard work is the key to success. Here, what does key mean? Key to success. Okay, yeah, it means that hard work is an important factor for success. This is also idiomatic because there is not a real key. We're not talking about a real physical key here. Okay. So the answer is that they are all examples of idiomatic language because the meaning is not literal. There is no physical key to success, and there isn't really anything on the tip of my tongue, just an expression we use. Okay. However, some of these expressions sound more natural than others, and many are informal and not suitable for academic writing. So, when do you think you might use each of these expressions in the Ielts test? So now I'm going to show you a kind of a line here. So here there are some that you should never use in either the speaking or the writing because they just sound a bit silly. Here we're going to put some that we should use in speaking only. And here we're going to put ones that we could use in both the speaking and the writing test. So the first one that we're going to look at is I was over the moon. So which section do you think we should put this expression in? Okay, so most of you are saying 2. Here they're saying I was over the moon. You should not use it. Okay, I'm not sure if I agree. I think you probably could get away with that in the speaking test. I think that would be fine, in my opinion. Okay, so the next one is it was raining cats and dogs. Where do you think this should go? Some people are saying 1, so I would definitely not write that in the writing test. So it's either 2 or 3, definitely not 1. So yeah, I would say 3. It sounds a bit ridiculous, like I said earlier. I don't know why, for some reason, lots of Chinese candidates like to use this expression. I have heard this many times in tests in China. It does sound a bit silly, so I would avoid using it. Next one, on the tip of my tongue. Okay, so this is something that you could use quite happily in the speaking test. So we say this all the time in spoken English. It sounds fine. Okay, next one. I'm fed up with it. When could you use that? Okay, so this is something you could easily use in the speaking test. In the writing test, it's unlikely that you would have an opportunity to express or to need to have an opportunity to need to use this kind of expression. But can anyone think of a more, if just in case you did need to use this, can anyone think of a more formal way of saying I'm fed up with something? Yeah, tired of, I can't stand, I've had enough of. Yeah, okay, these are all better, yeah. Oh, well, not better, they're just more formal. Okay, the next one, students are under a great deal of pressure. Yeah, everyone's got the right answer. We could use that in both speaking and the writing test, no problem. Next one, it's up to you. Okay, yeah, that would go in here. It's up to you, speaking only. And the last one, hard work is the key to success. That one is something that would be fine in both the speaking and the writing test. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Hold on a minute. Okay. The final advice on using idioms in the exam is that there are some very strong idioms that sound very unnatural and are avoided by native speakers. Like this one, for example, a very strong idiom. It sounds a bit silly, so I would avoid it. Idioms are often informal and therefore generally unsuitable for academic writing. Yeah, so some of them we would just use in the speaking test. And lastly, idiomatic expressions are common in both spoken English and informal writing. Yeah, okay. Oh, there's one more, sorry. However, they are easy to misuse. So if you're not 100% sure, choose another word or expression. Yeah, so you've only got to get one wrong word here, and you've completely messed up the whole phrase. Like instead of this up, if you didn't remember it, if you couldn't remember this expression and you said on or in or down or something like that instead, it would be completely incomprehensible. So if you're not 100% sure on the use of the idiom, probably avoid it and go for a more formal expression instead. Okay. So lastly, we're going to look at some techniques you can use to improve your vocabulary. So one would be some active reading and listening. So you should probably focus on high quality articles in the news. So I'm sure many of you study English often. So can you tell me, where do you normally get your English news from? Okay, yeah, so the BBC is a good source of high quality journalism. Yeah, TED Talks are also excellent. CNN would obviously be a good source as well. Voice of America, that's good, yeah. The New York Times, yeah. There's also there's a British newspaper called The Guardian that's, again, it's free and it's high quality journalism. Yeah, so you should be focusing on this kind of journalism rather than some sort of trashy magazine or trashy news like Fox News is obviously total rubbish. Yeah. Okay. And when you are watching or reading the news, you should probably note down some interesting new words. And you could write these down in a little journal. And I find going over them before you go to bed is a really good time. So yeah, again, recording your new words. There's an app called Quizlet that will help you to record your new words, and you can go over these on your mobile phone before going to bed. As I just mentioned as well, keeping a vocabulary note is also useful. Here's a very important one. You should learn phrases and collocations rather than single words. So often, I mean, we hardly ever use words singularly, do we? We always use words connected to other words. And certain words go with other words, certain words collocate with other words very naturally. And that's how you should try to learn words rather than just memorizing a whole list of single words. So yeah, I would recommend learning phrases rather than just single words. So on this website, www.justtheword.com, you can find some common collocations. So again, in both the written and speaking IELTS tests, you need to show evidence of collocation to get a 7 or above. Okay, so you need to use collocations to get a high score. Okay, you should familiarize yourself with an academic word list. For example, you could look up the 570 most frequent word families in academic English, and you could get the most out of your existing vocabulary. Maybe you could make a table where you practice changing the word form and make new sentences. So you could write down the verb to succeed, and then try to write a sentence using it as a verb, succeed, and then challenge yourself by writing a sentence with succeed as a noun, so success, or as an adverb, successfully, or as an adjective, successful. So yeah, that would be a good way to boost your existing vocabulary. Okay, so finally, I'm just going to let you know that apart from these free webinars that we do every month, we also have a paid service, the writing evaluation service. I'm not sure if any of you have ever used this, but it's a really useful tool for people who want to know roughly what they would, well, not roughly, but precisely what you would get in the writing test. So how does it work? So you go onto the website, you would choose your topic, you would then go away and write a task 1 and a task 2, or just a task 1 or just a task 2. Then you would submit your essay, and then you would receive your score within 48 hours with some detailed feedback about why you got that score and what you need to do to improve your score. So what does it look like? So this is what it looks like here. So here is the essay or the task 1 that this person has chosen. They've then uploaded their task 1 here. Here are the corrections the examiner has made. And here is a little justification of their score. This will be language used from the band descriptors, same band descriptors that the examiners use to grade your work. And then at the bottom, there'll be some general feedback about what you need to do to get a higher score. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. I'm afraid we didn't have time for any question and answer. That presentation took a little bit longer than I expected. So I hope you found today's webinar useful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So thank you very much for coming, and good luck in your IELTS test. Okay, so thank you. Goodbye.